the Gemara, but from the law of the Gemara, you cannot smell the hadassim during the holiday. And now the Gemara talks about what about if the hadas on a regular Shabbat, what's the status about smelling hadas when it's attached to the ground, or smelling an etrog when it's attached to the ground? What's the law? Are you allowed to smell it when it's attached to the ground? Now we know you can't detach something from the ground on Shabbat. Or on Yom Tov, that would be a very big violation of harvesting on Shabbat. You can't cut fruit off the tree on Shabbat. You can't cut plants, remove things from its growth that it's growing. You can't water plants on Shabbat. You can't make things grow. You can't make things. You can't do things like that. You can't harvest. So comes Rabbah on 37b. V'Amar Rabbah, the bottom of the page. Hadas the mechuba, 37b1. 37b1 on the right. Hadas the mechuba. Hadas, when it's attached to the tree, what's the halacha? Mutar l'riach bo. He says you could smell the hadas when it's attached to the tree, and the esro. See, it's interesting. Even though on the holiday itself, the Gemara says you cannot smell the hadas of the hadassim that you use for your lulav, you can't smell it on the holiday. But when it comes to Shabbat, it says that if it's attached to the ground, you could smell it. Why? And of course, you could smell hadassim on Shabbat when it's not attached to the ground. The only issue is on Sukkot when it's designated for the mitzvah of the lulav, but it's not supposed to be used for other purposes. But the hadas on a regular Shabbat, let's say you have a backyard, and in your backyard you grow hadassim. Can you go ahead and smell it on Shabbat? Now, not that you should move it, not that you should handle it. That will be getting into issues of mukseh. If you would move the hadas while it's attached to the tree, you would not move something when it's attached to the tree. But I'll go nearby and I'll take a sniff, and say a bracha, and then take a sniff. Say the bracha first, and then smell it. So it says hadas mechuba mutar l'riach bo. I'm allowed to smell the hadas. Is that clear, Ralph? I have a tree in my backyard. I have a myrtle tree in my backyard. I want to say a bracha on the tree. I want to get extra brachot on Shabbat because my amidah, I'm praying there's less brachot on Shabbat in the amidah, because general amidah has 19 brachot every Shemona Esrei. You have 3 of them of 19 brachot on Shabbat. Each Shemona Esrei has 7. You went from 19 to 7. You lost out 36 brachot. But you do have an extra amidah on Shabbat. You have musaf. You have the musaf, so you gain 7 brachot on that. So you're still missing 20. You're still missing, what'd you say? Supposed to do $100 a day, 100 a day. So now, you're missing 36 minus 7. So you're still missing 29 brachot. So you have to figure out how to get them, right? So he went ahead and he wanted to smell the psamim. Good morning, Jaime.
Morning, Rabbi.
We are on 37b1 on the bottom of the page. So we just said that Rabbah says 37b1 on the right corner. The Rabbah says, "V'amar Rabbah hadas mechuba mutar l'riach bo b'Shabbat." The hadassim, we said, if you have a myrtle bush in your backyard, Jaime, maybe if you have a myrtle bush in your backyard and you want to smell it on Shabbat, you could go ahead and go out to your backyard, say a bracha, and smell the myrtle bush. Don't handle it, don't touch it while it's attached to the ground. But you could technically, the Gemara says, you could go ahead and you could smell it, say bracha and smell it, and say the bracha, bracha ta Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam borei asay b'samim, right? So that's what you could say. That's what you could do on your hadas bush on Shabbat. And the chidush is, the novelty here is that even though it's attached to the ground, and we're very, there's a big one of the malachot on Shabbat. Good morning, welcome back, Simon. Baruchim haboim. Welcome back. So we have one of the malachot on Shabbat is ksira. It's harvesting. You're not allowed to harvest. You're not allowed to go to your backyard and pick off a fruit from your tree. You can't go ahead and pick up a fruit from your tree. You can't cut. You can't cut things off the tree on Shabbat. But we're not afraid. You're going to come ahead now. The question is, would the rabbis who are here to protect us, the police are here to protect the people, right? And the rabbis are here to protect the people. So would the rabbis did not make any gezerah, any fence to say that we have to be worried that maybe you're going to cut the hadass off the tree. If you're going to go smell it, are you going to go cut the hadass? They're not afraid because you will, you could just go smell it. You don't need to detach it to smell it. And we're not going to, the use of hadass is to smell it. So you're getting your use by smelling it while it's attached to the tree. And the rabbis didn't feel it's necessary to impose a fence to say don't smell it while it's attached to the tree, because unless you might come to pull it off the tree. The rabbis were not concerned about that. But when it came to an etrog, if you have an etrog tree in your backyard and you want to go ahead and smell your etrog tree, you want to smell your etrog on Shabbat, the rabbi says, no, we're going to make a fence. We're going to make a fence and we're going to say, don't smell your etrog tree. Why were the rabbis concerned more for the etrog than for Hadass? The rabbis are afraid, what do you do in etrog? The main purpose for an etrog is to eat. That's etrogim are produced for eating purposes. Hadassim, myrtles, are produced for smelling purposes. So since the normal way is to eat an etrog, you know what you might do on Shabbat? If you go smell the etrog, we're afraid you're going to go ahead and maybe forget, and you might go ahead and, it smells so good, maybe I want to go eat it. Might just pluck it off the tree. So therefore, when you smell it, you might forget and eat it. So that would be a big violation. That's one of the 39 malachot on Shabbat. What's the 39 malachot on Shabbat? You did harvesting. You took a fruit off a tree. Even though it would be done unintentionally, it's still a sin, a violation of Shabbat. The guy forgets that it's Shabbat, forgets that he can't do this, and he violates the Shabbat. It's a sin. He would have to bring, the time of the Beit HaMikdash, he would have to bring a sin offering. It's called a chatat. And we don't want a person to do something on Shabbat to unintentionally violate the Shabbat. So therefore, we don't want to put a person in a position that it's easy for him to forget and do a sin. Jaime, is that clear?
Yes.
So that's the, and therefore, when you have a good fence, when you make a good fence, you won't come, when you don't get too close to the edge, you don't come too close to the fire, the person won't get burnt. So don't get too close. So that's and the Gemara explains. The Gemara explains. An etrog that's attached to the tree, you're not allowed. Simon, you can't smell that etrog on Shabbat if it's attached to the tree. Why not? My time out. What's the reason? To see you, Adam. My time. Hadas the das is standing for smelling purposes. That is the purpose of it. Isharadle, if you permit him to go ahead and smell it while it's attached to the ground, he's getting his normal use. He's getting his smell. He's getting what he needs. He's getting his smell. We're not afraid he's going to have to cut it off because he's using it in the way while it's attached to the ground. He's smelling it. He's getting its use. However, etrog de la chilakai, an etrog is standing to be eaten. So Isha is Adam, if you're going to allow the guy to smell the etrog on Shabbat while it's attached to the ground, so then we're afraid he might come to cut it off from the tree, and therefore we say you can't do that. Okay, now comes Rabbah, and now Rabbah's back to a Sukkot, a law by Sukkot. Amar Rabbah, very interesting law regarding Sukkot. Amar Rabbah, lulav biyamin. Which hand do you take the lulav? You take the lulav in your right hand. And etrog bismol. You hold the etrog in your left hand. That's how you're supposed to go ahead, and that's what we do. You take the lulav in the right hand, and the etrog is in the left hand. My time. What's the reason why? What's the reason why we do it in such a fashion? Why do we place the lulav in the right hand. I mean, because really, if you look at it, I think the prize winner is really the etrog is the most nicest out of all the four minim. It's the most. It's the most. I mean, it seems the more halachot of beauty. Even though we say the hadar, the beauty applies to all the four species, and if any of them are dried out, we learned they're no good. But it seems that there's an extra focus on the etrog, but nevertheless, the winner is the lulav. Why is lulav the winner? So the Gemara says, oh, so like Simon says, my timer, hani tlata mitzvot, v'hai mitzvah. That the lulav and the hadassim they make up 3/4, 75% of the mitzvah. There's four parts to the mitzvah. There is the etrog, the lulav, hadassim, rovas. We call them the arba minim, the four minim. So you got three of the four to get connected, are connected with the lulav. So, and the etrog is one. So we say we go with the one that's more, it's the majority. Mitzvah. And that's one part of the mitzvah. And if you went ahead and you switched and you took it in the wrong way, right? You went in, you took the lulav in your left hand, and you did the hadassim in the right hand. The question is, how vital is this idea? That would that invalidate it? I mean, off the cuff, it would sound like that. We give honor, we give preference, but not that if you made a mistake and you went ahead and you switched the proper order and you took it in the wrong hand, you took the lulav in your left hand, etrog in the right hand, would you say that you're not yotzei? I mean, the Torah says, "Lakachtem lochem b'yom harishon." Take for yourself on that day an esrog hadassim and a ravot. Right? It doesn't say. There's no emphasis of a right hand. Good morning, Boker Tov. There's no emphasis of a right hand or a left hand in the language of the Torah. So, in this mitzvah, we know by tefillin, the Torah is very specific. By tefillin, the Torah said that the tefillin has to be you put the tefillin on your weak hand, right? It says you put it on yadcha and yad keha on your weak hand. But here the Torah did not emphasize any of that. So, in the Meforshim, in the commentaries, there are those that say that you would have to do it again. But it would seem that the main opinion is that you are yotzei, but the Magen Avraham says if you took the lulav in your left hand, you should go ahead and take it again. You should repeat. If you took it in the wrong hand, took the lulav in the left hand, you took the esrog in the right hand, you should do it over again, but do it without a bracha, to be concerned for those opinions that say, to be concerned for those opinions that say you did not get credit for the mitzvah if you did it in the wrong fashion, in the wrong hand. And the Eliyahu Rabbah says that you do not need to take it again because most poskim hold you are yotzei if you switch with the hands. Okay. Now, the question is, what's the status of a lefty? Does are you a lefty, Ralph? Okay, so we got a lefty here. So the Shulchan Aruch, of Yosef Cairo, the Sfardim, he says that a lefty, he will still take the lulav in his right hand. Just like every person, just like the average, most people I think are righties. The general population is righties. The general population take the lulav in your right hand. So the Shulchan Aruch of Yosef Cairo says that a lefty takes it in the lulav in the right hand of every person, and he does it like everybody else. He takes the lulav in the right, etrog in the left. Because there we go after the majority of the world. And the Chafetz Chaim points out by tefillin, specifically by tefillin, which is a bib, the way the Torah, I mean, emphasizes the weaker hand. Then we go after his hand. I mean, his language is tefillin, which is min Torah, You see, the idea of tefillin is the mitzvah. Tefillin, he says it's the raita, minatara. You go after his right hand. Lulav, meaning tefillin, it's a biblical mitzvah to take it in your weak hand. So that mitzvah. So if you're a lefty, you got to put the tefillin on your weak hand. If your weak hand is your right hand, if you're a lefty, you got to put it on that. However, lulav, the din of lulav, the idea of taking the lulav in your right hand over your left hand, that's the Torah never mandated that you should take the lulav in your right hand over your left hand. The Torah was not specific about any hand you want to take the lulav in. So it would seem from the Torah that you could take the lulav in any hand. But the Rabbanan, the rabbi said, you know what? But there's a nicer way to do it. Now that you could do it anyway, but we're going to tell you we should do it. Take the lulav in your right hand because the lulav has 3 mitzvot. So in such a case, there the rabbis would keep it on the right hand of everybody. So therefore, since there's no biblical mitzvah of right hand when it comes to putting the lulav, so therefore the rabbi said you would go after the right hand, which is generally the more general, honorable, stronger hand. So you go ahead, and that's what you do. If you're a lefty, you'll still do it. You put the lulav in the right hand. However, Ramah brings down that the Ashkenazim go the other way. They say that a lefty would take the lulav in their left hand, and they would put the etrog in their right hand, because they say the same way, just like by tefillin, it goes after you to the person. We don't look at the general world. So too, if this is your stronger hand, it's your stronger hand. So therefore, you should go after your stronger hand, and you should take the lulav, which has 3 mitzvot, in your stronger hand, which is the left hand. Okay, so we have different opinions of which way you should take. Every community has to do it according to their what the custom of their is for the lefties. Okay. Amalei Rav Yirmiyah Rav Zreika. My time elo mervachinan ela anatilat lulav. Why is the bracha, right? What's the bracha that we say when we take the lulav and the etrog at dasarabas? We take all 4 species, and we take it like we say. We keep the etrog upside down when we pick it up, and the bracha, and then we say the bracha. And after we say the bracha, then we turn the etrog over. Correct? What's the bracha that you make on this mitzvah? So the bracha is bracha ta Hashem Elokeinu b'cholam sheki Hashem al natilat lulav. We say the bracha is al natilat lulav. So he said to him, "What my time alone mavichinan ela al natilat lulav? Why don't we only mention the taking of the lulav? Why don't we mention the other items that are together with the lulav? Why don't we the etrog, mention the etrog, like Isaac says? Why don't you mention the etrog? Why don't you mention the hadas neravot? Right. So you could say it has 3 species, but still maybe you should you say al natilat lulav the etrog? Should you say al dalad minim? Why is it that there's a focus on we mentioned the lulav and not mention the other items? Yes. They pay a lot of money for the etrog, right? It's more expensive. The etrog is definitely more expensive. It's harder to, the etrog is more expensive. People are spending more money. That is true. So why is it that the lulav is the only? Why is the lulav is the one that gets the special mention and nothing else. So the Gemara says, "Hoyu legavuam mikulam." Since it is, so the Gemara understands it's the highest, it's the tallest out of all of them. So since it's the tallest out of all the four species, so therefore it's going to get the honor. We're going to give it the honor of the bracha. That's why it gets the honor. Rashi says that makes it chashuv. You stand tall, you stand high, and if you have all four species, if you're the highest, so then everybody becomes secondary to you. You stand out the most. Let's say if you look at a guy from afar, right, you see the lulav more than you see the etrog from afar. If you get close by, maybe you'll see the etrog, but from a distance. So they're going. So he's saying. So now he's saying it's higher. That, or if you look at the guy, the fact that this is high up, so we want to go after what's higher. I'll retract that point. Not because you're going to see, you see a bigger thing, from a distance. Rather, the thing that's on top, the thing that's the highest, that's what the Gemara is thinking at this point. The Gemara is thinking that since the lulav is a halacha, the lulav comes higher than the etrog, hadasim, and aravot, so the item that's on top should be given. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So the Gemara is thinking that the reason why we're talking about, Mark, why the bracha is al natilat lulav. Why is it that the bracha that's given for the arba minim is al natilat lulav? Why is that get the mention and nothing else? The etrog doesn't get, you don't say al natilat etrog, you don't mention al natilat lulav ve'etrog, So why is it? It's true. The lulav is in the right hand, it has three species, the etrog is in the left hand. But why are we only focusing on why do we mention the lulav? So the Gemara answers because it's the highest, it's the tallest. So the Gemara is thinking that the Gemara means to say that the fact that the lulav protrudes higher than the etrog and the hadasim and the aravot, so you go after the thing that's on top, and being that that's on top, so then everything else becomes secondary, so to speak, to it, and therefore that is the appropriate mention in the bracha.
But that one bracha covers all the species?
Yes, exactly. That one bracha, that the bracha natilat lulav, and if you're missing any of the species, you do not get credit for the mitzvah. Each part is an integral part to fulfill the mitzvah. There are 4 parts in the mitzvah, and there's one bracha al natilat lulav that's for all the species. You have that's covering the whole mitzvah. But why mention?
Right, but the thing that really is, sure, it's the tallest, but the ikar, or the biggest part of the whole thing, is the etrog. We spend time looking and picking the perfect etrog, and the lulav is like, just get one that's nice. It's like, you don't want an ugly lulav, but it's not the big idea.
Yeah, but the way it's true, it's harder to fulfill the mitzvah. The requirements that apply to an etrog are much harder to fulfill those requirements of an etrog than a lulav. But basically, the way we said, the mitzvah, the way the Torah obligates an etrog, and it should be a pri eitz hadar, a beautiful fruit. We said all 4 have to be pri eitz hadar. We learn out that all 4 of the items, and we said, what does hadar mean? It shouldn't be dry. Beautiful. And there's certain things about an etrog that if it's missing certain things, it will be considered it's a lack, because it's an etrog. When you're a fruit, so then certain things about you, if you're missing, maybe it's easier for you to be lacking beauty than if you're a lulav.
I guess in short, I'm just saying, we spent $300 on an etrog, and the lulav is like, if it's not $10, not really a factor.
Right. Isaac was saying that same thing. But remember, Mark, when it comes the responsibility, the mitzvah of maybe it's like you have 4 items. 3 of the 4 are much easier to get to fulfill the mitzvah, but they all 4 have a basic requirement, but one of them to fulfill that requirement takes more. That's the way I would say the way the Torah says, I want you to take an etrog. I want you to have dasim aravot. The response, they all have to meet certain type of criteria called hadar. They all have to be hadar. It happens to be that it's much harder to find an etrog hadar. But that doesn't necessarily, the Gemara doesn't necessarily say that the fact that it's harder should make it that it should be the sole focus, or the language of the bracha, it should win because it's harder. So that's to answer your question. It's true. It's much
more
more.
hashuv. More hashuv.
So the question is the fact that it's harder, the fact that that's more chashuv, would that make it enough to be considered more chashuv because it's hard?
We put it in a silver box and we wrap it up, and the lulav is like you just stick it in the plastic bag.
But you should realize, really, the mitzvah of beautifying the lulav should also be beautified too, in a certain sense. But maybe, you're supposed to.
It seems not as much to me.
Right.
In our current way we live.
Right.
The lulav is not.
Right. I hear you. So, but the Gemara says that in the first understanding of the Gemara is that the reason why the lulav is the winner is because the lulav is higher. Part of the lulav is higher, comes out higher than the etrog and the adasim and the ravot. So because it's higher, it gets the special mention. Everything else would become is part of that higher, taller item. So the Gemara says, so why don't we just raise the etrog? So here it seems like a little bit what you're saying. The Gemara, what's bothering the Gemara is what, but still, if it's a question of just because the lulav, the way we have the lulav, and we hold the etrog on the left hand, the lulav in the right hand, and the lulav comes higher than the etrog, right? The top of the lulav. So why don't you just go ahead and lift up the etrog higher than the lulav, hold the etrog higher than the lulav, and say the bracha on the etrog. So it seems that the Gemara is trying to understand.
You have to hold all 4 together.
Right, you hold all 4 together. So let's say I have the lulav that has the hadasim and the ravot connected to the lulav, correct? But I'm holding in my other hand the etrog. So why can't I hold next to each other? I'll have the etrog. I'll raise the etrog a little higher, and give the honor to and like you said, the etrog is the harder item to be found. It's much more expensive. So shouldn't we give the honor? So if we go ahead and raise the etrog higher than the lulav, then it would be appropriate if your whole reason is because the one is higher than the other. So I can make the etrog higher than the lulav. Just pick up the etrog.
Connected.
What do you mean it's not? I put it right. I put it right like this. That's called not connected, because it's not. It's not like this.
It's not connected to the arabot and the hazasim. If I put it high up,
it's connected. I'll say the top of the lulav. I'll have my top of the lulav. We'll go ahead. Let's say my top of my lulav will go up to here, and my etrog will be right next to it. Mark. Here's my top of my lulav.
It's not touching the hadasim and the arabot. So it has to be all 4 together.
So the Gemara is thinking that's called together. The Gemara is thinking that the fact that they're near each, technically, if a guy holds his lulav like this, outstretches his hand on the right, and the etrog on the left, that's called a mitzvah too. Yes, ideally we keep it near each other, but it's still called the performance of the mitzvah. if I stretch out, if I'm holding it two hands and I don't put them next to each other to that level. I took four species. I took the lulav on the right and the etrog on the left. So the Gemara is asking, why don't you? The etrog is not tied to the lulav, so let me go ahead and make it a little higher. Make the etrog higher. And the reason why. So one of the commentaries say, why is he focusing on that they ask that the etrog should be higher? So you, Mark adds me, and Isaac will say the reason why it should be higher is because it's more chashuv. It's more expensive. It's harder to find. Maybe that's why the Gemara is suggesting, why don't you make it the etrog higher? One of the commentaries say is that because in the Torah mentions etrog first. The Torah says, L'kachtem lachem pre-eitz hadah. First it mentions the etrog. And since it mentioned the etrog first, so that's how one of the Chachmat Shlomo says, the Gemara is asking, maybe that should be a reason why the etrog should be first and should be mentioned in the bracha. So the Gemara says, similarly, the Gemara says Amalei. So he tells them back, I didn't mean because we hold the lulav the way we hold the lulav comes higher than the etrog, because then technically you raise the etrog higher than the lulav. The reason why the bracha is on the lulav, he says, Hoyol b'mino, in the natural way that it grows, the lulav grows taller than the hadassim, arovot, and etrog. Gavoa mikulam. It grows taller. And since it grows taller, so when the rabbis are going to say, they're going to have to say a bracha on the four items, the rabbis said that the more appropriate to say the bracha on the item that's the tallest of the bunch, and everything else is part of that bunch. We're going to call the whole bunch by the thing that grows the tallest. That's the main reason why the bracha natilat lulav is the winner for this mitzvah. Okay, why the bracha natilat lulav? Comes the Mishnah, and the Mishnah states the following. Now, of course, when you say the bracha to address Jaime's point before, when you say the bracha al natilat lulav, baruch atah Hashem lulav, you should not just think about the lulav. Even though you're only mentioning the word, I'm saying a bracha on the taking of the lulav, but really in the person's mind, he's supposed to be thinking about the lulav, the hadassim, the haravot, and the etrog. That's what I'm saying the bracha on. I'm only identifying the four species by referring to the lulav, because everything is, because lulav is the biggest of the bunch. Naturally, it grows bigger. That's why I'm mentioning lulav. But we should not think that I'm only saying a bracha on the lulav. Jaime, hear what I'm clarifying? That point. The people need to know. Right, Ralph? You're saying a bracha on all.
The beracha also doesn't take its form until you put them together too. Holding them together, putting the when you put. That's why we hold our etrog upside down initially. Until you say the beracha, then you turn it right side up and put them together.
But technically, Mark, if a person would hold the lulav all the way on his right, with the hadassim and the ravot, and if he would take the etrog all the way on his left hand, not next to each other, but if he would take it, he's still not allowed to take the etrog, with the pitim up. Because if you take it the way it naturally, if you take it in that fashion, you technically did the mitzvah. The mitzvah is fulfilled even if you don't hold your hands right next to each other. If your hands are like this, they're outstretched. You have to still be careful not to take the etrog in the proper fashion. When you make the bracha, you have to make sure, Mark, that the bracha is that the etrog is upside down, even if it's like this, because technically you get credit for the mitzvah. If I hold the lulav like this and I hold the etrog like this, I got the mitzvah. If I did it the right side up, I'm done. I can't say the bracha anymore because I already did it. This is a nice thing that we do, and it's a point, but it's technically this where you get the. I just want to clarify that point. You technically get credit, so therefore you make sure you pick up. Now, what's the idea? If you pick up the etrog in the proper way, then you already did the mitzvah, and you lose out this issue. You might lose out saying the bracha. So in order, a bracha has to be performed, Isaac, right, before you perform the mitzvah. So how do we make sure you're doing the bracha before the mitzvah? If you hold the etrog in a way that you cannot fulfill the mitzvah, so therefore the bracha is done before you did the mitzvah. So you pick up the lulav in its normal fashion, but you pick up the etrog upside down. So you do not did them. You don't get credit for the mitzvah if it's upside down. So at that point, what do? You say the bracha on the four. So therefore, that's called a bracha before you do the mitzvah. Just like when you're dipping glasses in the mikveh, you first say the bracha on the glasses, not your eyeglasses, on the glasses, and then you dip it into. You like that, Bob, right? And then you dip it into. He's cleaning his eyeglasses, and then you go ahead and you put the glasses into the mikveh. But you say the bracha before you perform the mitzvah. I was learning with someone yesterday, and I felt bad because the way he's putting on his tefillin wrong. What is he doing? He's wrapping his tefillin. While he's wrapping, he's saying the bracha on the tefillin. It's a mistake. You have to be ready. Don't tighten it yet, because the mitzvah is to tighten the tefillin. You have to say the bracha before you tighten the tefillin. You say the bracha, and then after you say the bracha, then you tighten the tefillin. Because if you tighten it, you already did the mitzvah. So you're running. You said did the mitzvah before off sides. You're not supposed to be off sides. That's what do the mitzvah first. First you say the bracha, and then you go ahead and perform the mitzvah. So that's the story over here in the Gemara. Now tomorrow we're going to focus in. Anybody have any other questions regarding what we just said? Tomorrow we're going to focus in on the mitzvah of the nanuim. The nanuim is the waving of the lulav, and the way we wave the lulav in all different directions. It's fascinating that the Shulchan Aruch of Yosef Cairo says to do it a certain way. The Sephardi rabbi, and that's the way the Ashkenazim do it. But the Sephardim seem to follow the Ari, how the Ari says to do it, and they do it not the way the Mechaber of Shulchan Aruch says. See, the Ashkenazim, the way the Ashkenazim do it is they wave it this way, that way. It's very easy. They go straight ahead, to the right, back. Very easy to remember there, or that one order. But the Sephardim go like this, like that. It's a whole different. But the Sephardim, it's a little bit more to remember how the Sephardim do it. Well, yes. Yeah, the reason is because once you did one mitzvah with the lulav, so we try to do another mitzvah with the lulav. So therefore, since you did the mitzvah, so therefore, many people have a minhag to keep the lulav till Pesach, so you get another mitzvah with the lulav. Like they keep it. Some people keep it. They keep it. That's why they're keeping it in the back room to do another mitzvah. When you do there's an idea. You did one mitzvah with it. Now do another mitzvah with it. Burn the chametz with it. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Say it again.
If you hold the etro on the left, you have to turn it. If you're holding it out here, it's very difficult to turn it because you usually use the lock to help you turn it.
Maybe practically it might be hard.